I stood in the CEO's office at Next Tech Solutions, my hands trembling, as Tyler Bradford leaned back in his father's leather chair with a smirk that made my stomach turn. The words he had just spoken echoed in my mind like a death sentence. The projects live, so your job is gone. I had spent 18 months building this federal data security system from the ground up, navigating endless bureaucracy to secure a $17 million grant from the Department of Homeland Security. But Tyler, the 29-year-old CEO's son who had been handed a VP title 3 months ago, thought the hard part was over. The termination letter sat on the mahogany desk between us, already printed and signed. Tyler tapped it with one manicured finger, his expression casual, almost bored. "We don't need a project manager when there's no project to manage anymore," he said, as if firing me was the most logical decision in the world. He was talking about streamlining operations and transitioning to a maintenance phase. My brain struggled to process his words. I was the one who wrote the grant proposal. I was the technical lead who designed every security protocol. I was the federal liaison who spent a year building relationships with program officers at Homeland Security. I am 32 years old. I have a master's degree in computer science from the University of Texas. Nextech recruited me 4 years ago, specifically to pursue federal contracts because they had zero experience in that space. I taught them everything. I navigated Title 47 compliance requirements, federal acquisition regulations, and National Institute of Standards and Technology security frameworks. I personally knew Douglas Martin, the federal program officer who managed our grant, because I had spent 12 months building that relationship before we ever submitted our application. And now Tyler, who could barely explain what a firewall does, was telling me I was no longer needed. He slid a folder across the desk. 2 weeks, severance, he said. We appreciate your contributions. Security will escort you out. I stared at the folder, feeling like I had been punched in the chest. 2 weeks. After 4 years. After delivering a $17 million contract that would define this company's future. Before I could respond, 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Tyler stood up, smoothing his expensive suit. Your keycard has been deactivated. You'll need to leave your laptop and phone here. Company property. One of the guards handed me a cardboard box. For your personal items from your desk. The walk through the office was humiliating. 50 employees watched as I was escorted out like a criminal. Sarah from accounting looked away. Marcus from IT stared at his computer screen. Jennifer, the junior developer I had mentored for 2 years, had tears in her eyes but said nothing. I grabbed the framed photo of my niece, my coffee mug, and a small succulent plant from my desk. Everything else belonged to Nextech, apparently, including the project I had built. The security guard walked me to my car in the parking lot under the brutal Austin Sunday. My keycard beeped red when I tried to scan back in, just to feel if it was real. It was. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. My apartment felt too quiet. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall for 20 minutes before I could move. Then I called Maya, my best friend since college, who works in HR at a tech startup across town. She answered on the second ring. They did what her voice rose 3 octaves. Ash, they can't just fire you after you delivered a $17 million contract. That's insane. I explained everything. Tyler's smirk. The pre-printed termination letter. The security escort. Maya was outraged in a way I couldn't quite manage yet. I was still numb. You need to call an employment lawyer, she said. This smells wrong. But lawyers cost money, and my practical brain was already doing calculations. My rent was $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom in downtown Austin. I had student loans, car insurance, groceries. I had maybe 3 months of savings if I was careful. I needed to start applying for jobs immediately. 3 days passed. I sent out 15 job applications. I updated my LinkedIn profile. I tried not to think about how Tyler was probably already messing up the federal project. Then my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the Federal Grant Management System. I had forgotten to change my email preferences when I left Nextech. The automated system still sent me notifications about any activity on our grant. My heart stopped when I read the subject line, "Compliance Certification Submitted." I opened the email. Someone had submitted a quarterly compliance report using my credentials. My digital signature was on the document, but I did not submit it. I had not touched anything related to Nextech in 3 days. My hands started shaking again, but this time from anger, not shock. I logged into the federal grant portal. My credentials still worked. Nextech's IT department had not deactivated my federal access, only my company access. I navigated to our project dashboard and felt my blood run cold. There were 7 documents filed in the past 3 days. All of them showed my name as the submitter. All of them had my digital signature. Technical compliance reports, financial certifications, personnel status updates. These were official federal documents, and someone was forging my signature on them. I took screenshots of everything. My mind raced through the implications. This was identity fraud. This was federal document falsification. Whoever was doing this could face serious criminal charges, and so could I if anyone thought I was complicit. I drafted a careful email to Tyler. I kept it professional, not accusatory. I explained that I had received notifications about documents being filed under my credentials and asked if there had been some administrative error. I requested that my federal access be deactivated immediately and that any documents filed after my termination date be corrected to show the actual submitter. I hit send and waited. 24 hours passed. No response. Then at 11:17 at night, my email pinged. It was from a law firm I did not recognize. Gordon Price, attorney at law. The subject line said, "Cease and desist." My stomach dropped as I opened it. The letter was full of legal language, but the message was clear. I was accused of accessing company systems without authorization. I was interfering with Nextech's business operations. If I did not stop immediately, they would pursue legal action against me for computer fraud, theft of trade secrets, and breach of contract. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding. They were threatening me. I had reported a crime, and they were trying to intimidate me into silence. I looked at the timestamp again. 11:17 at night. They wanted me to read this alone, scared with no one to call. I forwarded the email to Maya. Then I sat in the darkness of my apartment and realized this was much bigger than losing my job. Tyler was not just moving on without me. He was actively using my identity to commit federal fraud, and now he was threatening me to cover it up. I did not sleep that night. The consultation with Bernard Hughes cost $300. I could not really afford, but I needed legal advice. His office was in a small building near the University of Texas campus, and the waiting room smelled like old coffee. Bernard was in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been practicing employment law for 23 years, and he did not look surprised by anything I told him. He read through the cease and desist letter, reviewed my documentation, and leaned back in his chair. "This is a scare tactic," he said. "Classic intimidation. But here's the problem. If you report the credential misuse to the federal authorities, Nextech will likely claim you gave them permission to use your digital signature. They will say it was part of your job duties, that you set up some kind of automated system before you left." "But I did not," I protested. I was escorted out immediately. I had no chance to transfer anything. "I believe you," Bernard said. "But belief is not the same as proof. You need documentation showing that you explicitly revoked access and that you did not authorize continued use of your credentials." He pulled out a yellow legal pad. "I recommend we send 2 formal letters. One to Nextech, demanding they cease using your credentials immediately. One to the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, reporting the unauthorized use and requesting that your signature be invalidated on all documents submitted after your termination date." "How much will that cost?" I asked, though I already knew I could not afford it. $1,500 for both letters drafted and sent via certified mail with tracking. It was half my savings. I agreed because I had no choice. While Bernard prepared the letters, I reached out to Jennifer. I texted her on her personal phone, asking if she could meet me for coffee. She did not respond for 6 hours. When she finally replied it was cautious, I do not know if that is a good idea. Please, I wrote back. I just want to understand what is happening. We met at a coffee shop far from Nextech in a neighborhood where no one from the company would see us. Jennifer looked nervous, her eyes darting around like she expected Tyler to jump out from behind a corner. She ordered a latte and picked at the cardboard sleeve without drinking it. They told us you left to pursue other opportunities, she said quietly. Tyler said you wanted to move on, now that the project was live. That is a lie, I said flatly. I was fired. Security escorted me out. Tyler fired me, and then kept using my credentials to submit federal documents. Jennifer, that is fraud. She looked down at her cup. I know. We all know something is wrong. Tyler does not understand the system. He keeps asking me technical questions that you would have answered in 5 seconds. He is using all your templates and documentation, just changing the dates. Is he still submitting reports under my name? She nodded. He figured out how to use the administrator access to generate your digital signature. He told the team you approved everything before you left and set up an automated system. But I have seen him doing it manually. It is not automated. It is him forging your signature on federal documents. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. There is a federal compliance audit in 6 weeks. Do they know that? Jennifer's face went pale. Tyler knows. He is panicking about it. The federal program officer, Douglas Martin, keeps asking questions. Lo, Tyler keeps saying you will handle it or that you approved everything before you left. I do not think he understands that you are legally required to be there for the audit. I am the primary technical officer on the grant, I explained. That is a formal designation. The grant agreement states that any changes to key personnel require federal approval. Tyler cannot just fire me and take over that role. It does not work that way. What are you going to do? Jennifer asked. I am reporting it, I said, through my attorney, to the federal government. Jennifer looked terrified. Please do not mention my name. I have student loans. I cannot lose this job. I promised I would not involve her. But as I drove home, I felt the weight of that promise. Jennifer knew the truth, but she was too scared to speak up. How many other people at Nextech knew what Tyler was doing but were staying silent? Bernard sent the formal letters 2 days later. One to Nextech via certified mail, demanding they cease using my credentials immediately. One to the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, reporting the unauthorized use of my digital signature and requesting an investigation. I felt a surge of hope. Finally, someone with authority would look into this. The federal government does not mess around with grant fraud. That hope lasted 48 hours. My LinkedIn profile exploded with activity. But it was not recruiters. It was anonymous comments on my posts. One said heard she sabotaged her former employer before leaving. Unethical behavior. Another said, anyone considering hiring this person should check her references carefully. Professional misconduct. Within hours, there were a dozen similar posts, all anonymous, all spreading the same message, do not hire me. Then my phone rang. It was a recruiter from DataShield, a cybersecurity company where I had applied for a senior position. They had been enthusiastic about my background during our initial conversation. Now the recruiter's voice was cold and formal. We have decided to withdraw our offer. After checking references and conducting background research, we do not believe you are a good fit for our organization. What references? I asked, my stomach sinking. I had not listed Nextech as a reference. The recruiter paused. We contacted your previous employer. The information we received was concerning. I am not at liberty to to share details. She hung up. I immediately called 2 other companies where I had applied. Both gave me similar responses. Concerning information. Professional conduct issues. Cannot move forward. Someone at Nextech was actively destroying my reputation. I called Nextech's main line and asked for Patricia, the HR director. When she answered, her voice was colder than the Arctic. Ashley, what can I do for you? I explained what was happening. Companies are calling for references and someone there is giving them false information. That is illegal. Patricia's response was smooth and practiced. When employers call for references, we are obligated to provide honest information about performance issues that led to termination. We have a duty to be truthful. What performance issues? I demanded. I was fired because Tyler said the project was done not because of my performance. That is your interpretation, Patricia said. Our records show differently. I recommend you move forward with your career and stop contacting this company. She hung up. I sat in my apartment, shaking with rage. They were not just using my credentials fraudulently. They were systematically destroying my ability to work anywhere else. Every job application I submitted would result in a call to Nextech, and Nextech would tell them I was incompetent or unethical or worse. My phone rang. It was Bernard. His voice was tight. We have a problem. Nextech has filed a lawsuit against you. Against me? For what? He read from the complaint. They are claiming you violated your employment agreement by accessing company systems after termination. They say you stole proprietary information. They are claiming you are interfering with their federal contract through false complaints. They are seeking damages of $500,000. I could not breathe. $500,000. I had $3,000 in my bank account. Bernard continued. Defending against this will cost at least $15,000. Possibly more if it goes to trial. Do you have that kind of money? No, I said quietly. I do not. I will see what I can do, Bernard said. But you need to prepare yourself. This is serious. I hung up and checked my bank account. $2,783. My unemployment claim was still pending because Nextech had contested it, claiming I was fired for misconduct. I had applied to 30 jobs and received nothing but rejections. My rent was due in 12 days. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall as the sun set. I was unemployed, nearly broke, being sued for $500,000, and professionally blacklisted. Meanwhile, Tyler was still running a federal project using my stolen credentials and no one seemed to care. I had tried to do the right thing. I had reported a crime, and doing the right thing had destroyed my life. 2 weeks later, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, expecting another debt collector or angry voicemail. But something made me pick up. This is Special Agent Diane Foster with the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General. I am calling for Ashley Reed. My heart jumped. This is Ashley. Miss Reed, we received your complaint regarding unauthorized use of federal grant credentials. I would like to meet with you to discuss the matter. Are you available this week? Yes, I said immediately. Anytime. Anywhere. We met at a federal building in downtown Austin. Agent Foster was in her 40s, professional and direct. She wore a dark suit and carried a thick folder. We sat in a small conference room with gray walls and fluorescent lighting. She set up a recording device and stated the date and time for the record. She asked detailed questions about my role at Nextech. I explained everything carefully. I was hired 4 years ago to develop federal contract opportunities. I spent 18 months navigating the grant application process for the Department of Homeland Security. The grant was for $17 million awarded in 3 tranches. The first tranche of $6 million had already been distributed for initial development. The second tranche of $7 million was scheduled for release at month 6, which was next month. The third tranche of $4 million would come at month 12. Each tranche required certification by the primary technical officer, I explained. That designation was specifically assigned to me in the grant application. The grant agreement explicitly states that changes to key personnel require advance federal approval. Agent Foster made notes. Tell me about your termination. I described the meeting with Tyler. The pre-printed letter. The security escort. The immediate deactivation of my company access. But my federal credentials were not deactivated, I said. Someone has been using them to submit compliance certifications and technical reports. I showed her the screenshots I had taken. These documents were filed after my termination date, but they show my digital signature. Agent Foster examined the screenshots. Did you maintain any access to Nextech systems after your termination? I checked the federal grant portal once after I received the automated notification, I admitted, but I did not access any internal Nextech systems. I only looked at the federal portal to verify what documents had been submitted under my name. Did anyone else have access to your credentials? IT administrators would have system-level access, I said. They could generate digital signatures for any employee. Agent Foster made more notes. Did you benefit financially from steering this grant to Nextech? The question caught me off guard. No. I was a salaried employee. I received no bonuses or commissions related to the grant. You are certain? No consulting fees, no success payments, nothing outside your normal compensation. I am certain, I said firmly. Why are you asking? Agent Foster's expression remained neutral. We have to verify all financial relationships. It is standard procedure. She left after 2 hours, saying the investigation would continue. I felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. Finally, someone with real authority was looking into Tyler's fraud. That hope died 7 days later. I tried to buy groceries at the store near my apartment. My debit card was declined. Confused, I tried again. Declined. I used my credit card instead and rushed home to check my bank account online. Your account has been restricted due to a federal investigation hold. I called the bank immediately, my hands shaking. The representative was sympathetic but firm. When there is a federal investigation, we have no choice but to freeze accounts. You need to contact the investigating agency. I had $1,422 in that account. I could not access it. I called Agent Foster and left a desperate voicemail. She called back 6 hours later. Miss Reed, we are looking into some financial irregularities. Someone will contact you about next steps. What financial irregularities? I asked, panic rising in my throat. I have not done anything wrong. I cannot discuss the details of an ongoing investigation. She hung up. I sat on my couch, trying not to hyperventilate. My rent was due in 5 days. $2,000. I had $317 in cash. That was it. I called Bernard, but his receptionist told me he could not continue representing me without payment. He filed a motion to withdraw as my attorney in the Nextech lawsuit. I was alone. Maya came over that night with takeout Chinese food. She found me sitting in the dark, crying. When I explained about the frozen bank account, she hugged me tightly. You can stay with me if you need to. My couch is yours. Through Bernard, I requested my complete personnel file from Nextech before he withdrew. It arrived 3 days later via certified mail. I opened it with Maya sitting next to me, her hand on my shoulder for support. Inside was a document I had never seen before. Consulting agreement, the header read, between Nextech Solutions and Ashley Reed. The document stated that in exchange for successfully securing the Department of Homeland Security grant, I would receive a success fee of $80,000 paid within 30 days of grant award. The signature at the bottom looked like mine. But I had never seen this document before. I had never signed it. I had never received $80,000. Maya read over my shoulder. Is this real? No, I said, my voice shaking. I have never seen this before. This is fake. Someone forged my signature. But it looks like your signature. It does, I admitted. But I did not sign it. Maya, I have never received $80,000 in my life. You can look at my tax returns. Look at my bank statements. There is no such payment. We spent the next 2 hours going through my financial records. My tax returns for the past 3 years showed only my salary income from Nextech. My bank statements showed no large deposits. The biggest deposit in the past year was my security deposit refund from my previous apartment, $1,200. This is a setup, Maya said quietly. They created fake paperwork to make it look like you took a kickback for the grant. My phone buzzed. An article from the Austin Business Journal. The headline made my blood run cold. Former Nextech employee under federal investigation for grant fraud. The article did not name me, but it cited sources close to the investigation, saying a former project manager allegedly received improper payments related to a Department of Homeland Security grant. The company is cooperating fully with investigators. My phone started buzzing with texts. Former colleagues asking if I was okay. People I had not spoken to in years, sending messages of concern or judgment. Everyone in the tech community knew. Everyone would assume I was guilty. Then Jennifer texted Tyler told everyone in a company meeting that you tried to extort money from them. He said you threatened to sabotage the project if they did not pay you. He showed us an email. There is no such email, I typed back with shaking hands. I never threatened anyone. This is all lies. Jennifer did not respond. I sat in Maya's living room that night, unable to sleep. The pieces came together in my mind. Someone at Nextech had created an elaborate paper trail, making it look like I took a bribe. They opened a bank account in my name. They forged a consulting agreement. They created fake emails, all to frame me for federal grant fraud. If the government believed it, I would not just lose my career, I would go to prison. Federal fraud charges carried sentences of up to 20 years. Tyler was not just trying to silence me, he was trying to destroy me completely. I moved into Maya's apartment on a Tuesday afternoon. My landlord had posted a 3-day eviction notice on my door. I could not access my frozen bank account. I could not pay rent. At 32 years old, I was homeless. Maya's apartment was a small 1-bedroom in North Austin. She gave me the couch and tried to act like having a roommate was no big deal. But I saw the worry in her eyes when she thought I was not looking. I ate ramen noodles and applied for jobs knowing that every application would end with a call to Nextech and a rejection. My credit cards were maxed out from legal fees. Bernard had formally withdrawn as my attorney. I was representing myself in the Nextech lawsuit, now trying to understand court filings and procedural rules from YouTube videos and legal aid websites. My unemployment claim was denied. Nextech successfully argued I was fired for misconduct. I had no income, no prospects, no money. But I still had documentation. I had my bank statement showing I never received $80,000. I had my tax returns showing only salary income. I focused on proving the consulting agreement was fake. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request for all documents related to the federal grant investigation. I requested my complete bank records from Wells Fargo for the past 3 years, certified and notarized, showing every single transaction. The bank charged me $45 for the certified records. It was money I did not have, but I borrowed it from Maya. I contacted a forensic document examiner, hoping they could prove the signature on the consulting agreement was forged. The consultation fee was $2,500. I could not afford even the initial consultation. 3 weeks after my bank account was frozen, Agent Foster agreed to meet with me again. I brought 3 banker boxes full of printed bank statements, tax returns, and credit card statements. I spread them across the conference room table. Look, I said, my voice desperate. There is no $80,000 anywhere. My highest balance in the past 3 years was $7,200. I have student loan payments, rent payments, grocery purchases. Every dollar is accounted for. Where would this money have gone? Agent Foster reviewed the documents carefully. Her expression softened slightly. The money allegedly went to an account at First National Bank under your name. Account number ending in 4729. I have never had an account at First National Bank, I said firmly. I have banked at Wells Fargo for 10 years. Only Wells Fargo. Agent Foster made a note. I will look into this. Days passed. I checked my voicemail obsessively. Finally, Agent Foster called back. Her voice was careful. Miss Reed, there is a problem. The account at First National Bank was closed 3 weeks ago. All records were purged per bank policy for inactive accounts with zero balance. We have no transaction history. Someone opened that account in my name and then closed it, I said. That is identity theft. Possibly. But without the bank records, we cannot verify whether you opened that account or someone else did. The trail was disappearing. Every piece of evidence that could exonerate me was being systematically destroyed. I drove to the First National Bank branch listed on the account paperwork Agent Foster had mentioned. It was in a strip mall in South Austin. The branch manager was a man in his 50s, named Carl. He had kind eyes and a patient demeanor. I need information about an account that was allegedly opened in my name, I explained. I believe it was fraudulent. Carl looked sympathetic, but shook his head. I cannot discuss closed accounts. Bank policy. Even if I wanted to help you, the records are gone once an account is closed, for more than 30 days. Is there any way to find out who opened it? Security footage? Application paperwork? He hesitated. Account openings require 2 forms of identification: a driver's license and either a passport or social security card. Whoever opened that account would have needed your personal information. My mind raced. Nextech HR had all my personal information. My social security number. Copies of my driver's license. They had everything someone would need to open a bank account in my name. Carl could not help me further. I left the bank feeling defeated. I needed Jennifer to testify about what was really happening at Nextech. I called her repeatedly. No answer. I texted her. No response. Finally, I drove to Nextech and waited in the parking lot. It felt pathetic, lurking outside my former employer like a stalker. But I was desperate. Jennifer came out at 5:47 in the evening. She was walking with 2 other developers, laughing at something. When she saw me, her face went pale. She said something to her colleagues and walked over to my car slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. I cannot talk to you, she said before I could speak. They made me sign an NDA, a new one specifically about you. If I talk to anyone about company operations or about anything related to you, I will be fired and sued. I have $80,000 in student loans, Ashley. I cannot risk it. Tyler silenced everyone who knows the truth, I said bitterly. I am sorry. I really am. But I have to think about my own life. She walked away quickly. I sat in my car and watched employees leave for the day. All of them knew Tyler was committing fraud. All of them were too scared to speak. My phone rang. It was Agent Foster. Miss Reed, I need to inform you that the federal compliance audit at Nextech is scheduled for next week. Per the grant agreement terms, the primary technical officer must be present for the audit and personally certify all technical compliance measures. That is me, I said. I am the primary technical officer. Yes. Which creates a problem. Without your participation, Nextech cannot pass the audit. The second tranche of $7 million will not be released. The entire grant could be terminated. Good, I said. Let it be terminated. They are committing fraud. Agent Foster sighed. It is not that simple. If the grant is terminated, the government will demand repayment of the initial $6 million. Nextech may not have that kind of cash on hand. There could be significant legal complications. That night, Gordon Price called me directly. His voice was smooth and professional. Ashley, this situation has gotten out of hand for everyone involved. Let us resolve this like reasonable adults. I am listening, I said cautiously. He laid out an offer. Nextech will drop the lawsuit against you. They will pay you $50,000. You will sign paperwork stating you resigned voluntarily. You will participate in the federal audit as a paid consultant. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement and a non-disparagement agreement. Everyone moves on. And if I refuse, then we pursue the lawsuit aggressively. We push the federal investigation. We have additional evidence of your misconduct we have not yet released. We are also considering filing criminal charges against you for accessing federal systems without authorization after your termination. This is your chance to end this, Ashley. Take the money. Move on with your life. I need time to think, I said. You have 48 hours. I hung up and stared at the settlement papers he emailed immediately after the call. $50,000. It would solve my immediate financial crisis. I could start over somewhere else, but I would be letting them win. I would be signing away my right to ever tell the truth about what they did. Tyler would keep the $17 million grant. He would keep committing fraud, and I would be silenced forever. Maya found me crying on her couch at 2 a.m. She sat next to me and put her arm around my shoulders. What are you going to do? I do not know, I whispered. If I fight, I might lose everything. But if I take the settlement, they get away with it. Sometimes the bad guys win, Maya said gently. Maybe you need to survive first and fight another day. The settlement papers sat on the coffee table. I had 48 hours to decide whether to surrender. I called Gordon Price on Thursday morning. His secretary put me through immediately. He sounded confident, expecting my surrender. I am not taking the settlement, I said. The line went silent for 3 seconds. Then his voice turned cold. You are making a serious mistake. You will regret this decision. Maybe, I said. But I can live with fighting and losing. I cannot live with staying silent. I hung up before he could respond. Within 4 hours, Detective Raymond Shaw from the Austin Police Department called. There was a warrant for my arrest. Nextech had filed criminal charges, computer fraud, and abuse theft of trade secrets, and unauthorized access to protected systems. Maya drove me to the police station. I turned myself in voluntarily, hoping it would look better than being arrested. It did not help. I was fingerprinted, photographed. My mugshot showed a woman with dark circles under her eyes and defeat in her expression. I was held in a cell for 6 hours, sitting on a metal bench next to a woman arrested for shoplifting and another for public intoxication. When I was finally released on my own recognizance, Maya was waiting. She hugged me tightly in the parking lot. You are going to get through this, she whispered. But I could hear the doubt in her voice. My mugshot appeared on a local crime reporting website that night. Someone at the police station had leaked it. The tech community in Austin is small. By morning, everyone had seen it. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues, some supportive, most avoiding me. My bank account freeze was extended indefinitely. Not just federal investigation now. Criminal investigation. I had zero access to money. I was completely dependent on Maya for food toiletries. Even my phone bill. I felt like a burden, a failure, a charity case. I had one option left. Douglas Martin, the federal program officer who managed the DHS grant. I drafted a careful email explaining everything. My wrongful termination, the fraudulent use of my credentials, Tyler's takeover of the project without federal approval, my complaint to the Office of Inspector General. I asked for his help. His response came 6 hours later. It was brief and formal. I appreciate your concerns, but I cannot intervene in personnel matters between you and Nextech. The grant is awarded to the organization, not to specific individuals. I suggest you resolve your employment dispute through appropriate legal channels. He did not understand. Or he did not want to get involved. Either way, I was alone. The federal audit was scheduled for Monday morning at 9. On Friday afternoon, a courier delivered a subpoena to Maya's apartment. I was required to appear at Nextech as the designated primary technical officer on the grant. My failure to appear would constitute a violation of federal law and could result in personal penalties, including fines and potential criminal charges. It was a perfect trap. They had fired me. They were suing me. They had me arrested. And now they were legally forcing me to walk back into their building where Tyler controlled everything. Maya read the subpoena and shook her head. This is insane. Can they really force you to go? Apparently, yes, I said. If I do not show up, I am the one breaking the law. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I put on the only professional outfit I still owned, a navy blazer and black pants. Maya offered to drive me, but I refused. I needed to face this alone. Nextech's building looked exactly the same. The glass and steel architecture, the modern landscaping, the parking lot where I had been escorted out 2 months ago. I walked through the front doors and security made me wait in the lobby. Other employees walked past, some avoiding my eyes, others staring openly. Tyler came down after 15 minutes. He was smiling. Thanks for coming, Ashley. We knew you would do the right thing. I did not respond. I followed him to a conference room on the 3rd floor. The federal auditors were already there. 2 inspectors from the Department of Homeland Security, including a senior auditor named Walter Simmons. He was in his 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Douglas Martin was on a video conference screen, his face pixelated and distant. Gregory Bradford sat at the head of the conference table. The CEO, Tyler's father. I had only met him twice in 4 years. He was in his early 60s, gray hair, perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. He looked at me like I was something unpleasant stuck to his shoe. Walter Simmons opened a folder. Let us begin. This is a quarterly compliance audit for the Department of Homeland Security Federal Data Security Grant Project, number DHS-74221-A. The purpose is to verify technical compliance, financial accountability, and adherence to all grant terms. He started asking questions about the security infrastructure, encryption protocols, access controls, compliance with Federal Information Security Management Act standards. Tyler tried to answer, but his responses were vague and often wrong. Walter frowned. I need to speak with the primary technical officer. According to our records, that is Ashley Reed. Tyler leaned forward smoothly. Ashley is here as a courtesy. She is no longer with the company, so I have taken over her responsibilities on the project. Walter's frown deepened. The grant terms require specific personnel designations. Changes to key personnel require advance written notification and federal approval. Was Miss Reed's departure reported to the program office. On the screen, Douglas Martin spoke. I have no record of any personnel change notification for this grant. There was a moment of tense silence. Walter looked at me. Miss Reed, when did you leave Nextech? I was terminated 10 weeks ago, I said clearly. I was given no notice. Security escorted me out immediately. Walter made a note. And you no longer have access to the project systems or documentation. Correct. My access was revoked the day I was fired. Walter opened another folder. Then can you explain these compliance certifications filed in the past 8 weeks? They all show your digital signature as the primary technical officer. This was my moment. I could lie. I could play along. I could sign off on everything and take the path of least resistance. It would be so easy. Or I could tell the truth and blow everything up. I looked at Tyler. His eyes held a warning. His father's expression was threatening. But I thought about the past 2 months. The homelessness. The frozen bank accounts. The arrests. The systematic destruction of my life. No, I said clearly. I did not sign those certifications. I have not had access to company systems or project documentation since the day I was terminated. Someone has been using my digital credentials without my authorization. The room went silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Tyler's face turned red. That is absurd. Ashley, we talked about you staying on as a consultant for the transition period. That is a lie. I said, my voice steady. I was escorted out by security. My key card was deactivated while I was still in the building. There was no transition period. There was no consultant agreement. You fired me and then continued submitting federal documents using my forged signature. Walter Simmons looked at Tyler, then at me, then at Gregory Bradford. This is a very serious allegation. If compliance documents were falsified using forged credentials, that constitutes federal grant fraud. Tyler stood up aggressive now. She is lying. She is trying to sabotage us because she is angry about being fired. She is under criminal investigation for hacking our systems. Check with the Austin Police Department. She is facing charges. Walter made another note. We will need to verify the authenticity of all submitted documentation. This audit is suspended pending a thorough investigation into these allegations. Gregory Bradford spoke for the first time, his voice hard. How long will that take? Weeks, possibly months, Walter said. Until this is resolved, no further grant funds will be released. If we determine that fraud occurred, the grant will be terminated and all distributed funds must be repaid. $7 million in the second tranche. Gone. Potentially $6 million from the first tranche to be repaid. $17 million total. At risk. Gregory's face went pale, then red. He looked at Tyler with barely controlled fury. The auditors left. Douglas Martin disconnected from the video call. I stood to leave, but Tyler blocked my path in the hallway. His voice was low and threatening. You just cost us $7 million. My father is going to destroy you. We will bury you in legal fees until you are living on the street. Actually, you already are, aren't you? I heard you got evicted. Before I could respond, Gordon Price appeared. Tyler, do not say anything else. He looked at me with cold eyes. You had your chance to settle. Now we are going to make an example of you. Our firm has resources you cannot imagine. We will pursue every legal avenue until you have nothing left. I walked to the parking lot alone. I sat in Maya's car, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I told the truth. I did the right thing. But what did it cost me? The audit was suspended. The investigation would take months. And Nextech's entire legal and financial machine was aimed at crushing me. I put my head on the steering wheel and cried. 3 days later, I woke up to 17 missed calls. My phone was buzzing on Maya's coffee table like an angry wasp. Something had happened. The first voicemail was from Agent Foster, her voice urgent. Miss Reed, call me immediately. It is critical. The second was, from Douglas Martin. Ashley, we have a serious situation with the Nextech system. I need to speak with you as soon as possible. My hands shook as I checked the news. The headline made my stomach drop. Federal Security System. Failure locks out thousands of law enforcement personnel. The federal data sharing platform I had built was down. Completely down. All 3 federal agencies using it had no access. Border Patrol agents could not check databases. FBI field offices could not share intelligence. TSA personnel could not access security watch lists. Thousands of law enforcement and security personnel across the country were locked out of critical systems. It was a national security incident. The article quoted Tyler saying Nextech was working around the clock to resolve the technical issue. Then, in the final paragraph, there was a subtle hint that the problem might be related to recent personnel changes and possible sabotage by a disgruntled former employee. He was blaming me. I called Agent Foster back. She answered immediately. Did you do anything to the Nextech system? Any access? Any code changes anything? I have not touched that system in 11 weeks, I said firmly. I do not even have access. My credentials were deactivated the day I was fired. We are tracking all system access logs. If we find your credentials were used, this becomes extremely serious. We are talking potential terrorism charges if national security systems were deliberately compromised. I did not do this, I said, hearing the panic in my own voice. I hung up and immediately understood what had happened. I built that system. I knew every component, every protocol, every security measure. A total lockout like this was not a random technical failure. Someone had done something catastrophically wrong. There was a certificate authentication renewal that had to be performed every 60 days. It was a critical security measure required by federal compliance standards. The renewal required specific cryptographic keys that only the primary technical officer possessed. The keys were stored in a secure federal key management system accessible only to me. The renewal had been due last week. Tyler did not have the keys. He probably did not even know they existed. Without the renewal, the entire authentication chain collapsed. Every system locked out. Every user denied access. And the only person who could fix it was me. My phone rang. Douglas Martin. His earlier dismissiveness was completely gone. Ashley, we need your help. The system is down. Everything is down. Can you fix this? I can, I said carefully. But I need full system access. And I need Tyler completely out of my way. No interference. Done. Whatever you need. I will authorize it immediately. I paused, thinking about the past 2 months. The humiliation. The arrests. The frozen accounts. The mugshot. The professional destruction. Before I agree, I need something in writing. What do you need? I need a formal written statement from the Department of Homeland Security acknowledging that I was wrongfully removed from this project without federal approval. I need documentation stating that all certifications filed under my name after my termination date were unauthorized. And I need it acknowledged in writing that I am the only person with the technical expertise to resolve this crisis. Douglas hesitated. That is a significant request. My voice was hard. Then your system stays down. You said thousands of law enforcement personnel cannot do their jobs right now. How long can that continue before it becomes a real security problem? I will make it happen, he said. Within 2 hours, an official letter arrived via email from the Department of Homeland Security Office of the Chief Information Officer. It stated that Ashley Reed was the designated primary technical officer for Federal Data Security Grant Project DHS-7421-A. It acknowledged that her expertise was critical to system operations. It stated that the current system failure occurred after her unauthorized removal from the project in violation of grant terms requiring federal approval for personnel changes. It was not everything I wanted, but it was official documentation from the federal government supporting my position. I called Douglas back. I will come fix it. Walter Simmons met me at Nextech. He escorted me past security, past the employees who stared past the conference rooms where I had been humiliated. Tyler was there looking panicked and exhausted. His father Gregory was there too, his face tight with barely controlled rage. Gregory pointed at me. Fix it quickly. Every minute costs us money and reputation. I ignored him. I sat at a workstation in the server room and began assessing the damage. It was worse than I expected. Tyler had not just missed the certificate renewal. He had tried to do it himself using incorrect protocols and corrupted the entire authentication chain. He had broken foundational security architecture that took me months to build. Tyler hovered behind me. "Can you just reset it or something? How long will this take?" I turned and looked at him. "If you knew how to reset it, you would have done it already. This will take at least 6 hours. Maybe more. Stop talking." Gregory pulled Tyler aside, and they had a whispered argument. I ignored them and focused on the work. Rebuilding certificate chains, re-authenticating access points, verifying cryptographic signatures. It was tedious technical work that required absolute precision. While I worked, I accessed the system audit logs. I needed them to rebuild the authentication sequence properly. But in those logs, I saw something else. Something that made my heart race. Every access to the system after my termination was logged. Every document submission. Every certification filed. Every action taken under my credentials. The logs showed the exact date, time, username, workstation, and IP address for each action. Hundreds of entries. All from Tyler's workstation. All using administrator privileges to generate my digital signature on federal documents. It was time-stamped, documented, undeniable proof of systematic fraud. I quietly exported the complete audit logs to a secure external drive I had brought with me. 7 gigabytes of data. Every piece of evidence I needed. 7 hours later, the system came back online. I ran verification tests. Federal agencies began reporting restored access. Douglas Martin sent an email thanking me personally. Walter Simmons looked relieved. Gregory Bradford stood up. "Good. Now leave." Before I left, I turned to face him and Tyler. "Your son has been forging federal documents for 11 weeks. He used administrator access to generate my digital signature on compliance certifications. I have the system logs proving it. Time-stamped evidence of every fraudulent submission." Gregory's expression went cold. "You are in no position to make accusations. My legal team will bury you. Get out of my building before I have you arrested for trespassing." Tyler smirked, confident his father would protect him. I left without another word. The external drive was in my jacket pocket. 7 gigabytes of evidence that would destroy them. That evening, Nextech's legal team sent an updated lawsuit. They were now seeking $1.2 million in damages, claiming I deliberately caused the system failure to extort the company. Detective Shaw left a voicemail saying the criminal investigation was being accelerated. New charges were being considered. I sat with Maya in her apartment, the external drive on the coffee table between us. She looked at it then, at me. "What are you going to do?" I thought about the past 11 weeks. The humiliation, the poverty, the arrests, the systematic destruction of my life and career. I thought about Tyler's smirk, Gregory's threats, Gordon Price's promises to bury me. I picked up the drive. I am going to burn it all down. I did not go to Agent Foster. I did not go to Douglas Martin. I went directly to the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General Regional Headquarters in Dallas. I called ahead and requested an emergency meeting with Regional Inspector General Catherine Torres. Her office was on the 14th floor of a federal building downtown. Security was intense. Metal detectors, ID verification escort through multiple checkpoints. Catherine Torres was in her 50s, African American, with an expression that suggested she had seen every kind of fraud and corruption imaginable. She did not look impressed or sympathetic. She looked like someone who cared only about facts. I brought 3 things. The external drive with 7 gigabytes of system audit logs, a folder containing all my documentation from the past 11 weeks, and a timeline I had created showing every fraudulent action Tyler had taken. I laid it all on her desk. This is proof of systematic federal grant fraud by Nextech Solutions. Tyler Bradford, the vice president and son of the CEO, has been forging my digital signature on federal compliance documents for 11 weeks. He used administrator access to generate false certifications. The system logs show every instance with timestamps and IP addresses proving he was the one submitting documents under my credentials. Catherine examined the external drive. "What else do you have?" I showed her my bank records proving I never received the alleged $80,000 kickback. I showed her the consulting agreement with the forged signature. I explained how Nextech had created a fake bank account in my name to frame me for taking bribes. I showed her the timeline of retaliation, the lawsuit, the criminal charges, the professional blacklisting, everything. She reviewed the materials for 90 minutes without speaking. Finally, she looked up. "This is substantial evidence of criminal fraud. Multiple federal statutes have been violated: grant, fraud, identity theft, falsification of federal documents, obstruction of justice. Can you stop them?" I asked. "We will open a full criminal investigation immediately. I will personally oversee it." 1 week later, federal agents executed a search warrant at Nextech Solutions. A dozen agents in blue windbreakers, with Office of Inspector General badges on their backs, walked through the front doors at 8 in the morning. Employees were ordered to step away from their computers. Servers were seized. Hard drives were imaged. Document boxes were carried out by the dozens. Tyler and Gregory were separated and questioned for 6 hours each. Their attorney, Gordon Price, looked significantly less confident when federal agents were involved. Within 3 days, the evidence unraveled completely. The IT administrator who created the fake bank account made a deal with prosecutors. He testified that Tyler had ordered him to open the account in my name, create fake transaction records showing an $80,000 deposit, then close the account and destroy the evidence. He had screenshots of Tyler's emails giving these instructions. Jennifer and 3 other Nextech employees freed from their NDAs by the federal investigation came forward. They confirmed Tyler had been forging my signatures. They testified about his lies to federal auditors. They described the systematic cover-up. The consulting agreement was sent to forensic document examiners. They confirmed the signature was digitally forged using samples from my employment paperwork. My name was cleared, completely, officially. 2 weeks after the federal raid, Tyler Bradford was indicted by a federal grand jury on 8 counts: grant fraud, identity theft, falsifying federal documents, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, retaliation against a witness, obstruction of justice, and making false statements to federal investigators. Each count carried potential prison time. Combined, he faced up to 30 years. Gregory Bradford was indicted on 3 counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of justice, and accessory after the fact. Prosecutors argued he knew about Tyler's fraud and helped cover it up. He faced up to 15 years. The company faced millions in fines. The $17 million grant was terminated. The federal government demanded repayment of the initial $6 million already distributed. Nextech did not have that kind of cash on hand. They tried to negotiate a payment plan. The government refused. All criminal charges against me were dropped. The Austin Police Department formally apologized. My arrest record was expunged. Detective Shaw called personally to say he was sorry for not investigating more thoroughly. The lawsuit Nextech filed against me was dismissed with prejudice. My attorney fees were awarded as sanctions against Nextech and Gordon Price personally. My bank accounts were unfrozen. The federal government issued a formal letter stating I had been wrongfully accused and that I had actually helped expose significant fraud. Agent Foster apologized for doubting me. The Department of Homeland Security offered me a direct contract position to rebuild and manage the federal data security platform. The contract was worth $215,000 annually, more than twice my previous salary. I would work independently, not through Nextech or any other contractor. 6 months later, Nextech Solutions filed for bankruptcy. The federal fines, legal fees, and repayment demands destroyed them. The company that had employed 300 people closed completely. Gregory Bradford lost his house, his cars, his country club membership, everything. Tyler was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. He served 22 months. His career in tech was over. No one would hire him. His name was permanently associated with federal fraud. I moved to San Francisco and took a director position at a major cybersecurity firm. The job paid well. The work was challenging. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. My reputation was restored. My savings account grew. I found an apartment with a view of the bay. But the best moment came 8 months after the federal raid. I received a letter from the Department of Homeland Security. It was a formal commendation for my role in exposing grant fraud and protecting federal security systems. The letter thanked me for my integrity, my technical expertise, and my courage in reporting criminal activity despite significant personal cost. I framed that letter and hung it in my office. Sometimes late at night I think about those 11 weeks, living on Maya's couch, eating ramen noodles, my mugshot on the internet, the despair, the loneliness, the moments when I almost gave up and took the settlement just to make it stop. I learned something important during that time. Doing the right thing is not always rewarded immediately. Sometimes it costs you everything. Sometimes you lose your job, your home, your reputation. Sometimes you stand alone against people with more money and more power and more resources than you can possibly match. But the truth has weight. The truth has power. And the truth eventually wins. It took 11 weeks of hell. It took federal investigators finally listening. It took evidence I risked everything to gather. But in the end, Tyler and Gregory lost. They lost their company, their freedom, their reputations. They lost because they were wrong and I was right. I am not special. I am not a hero. I am just someone who refused to be silent when I saw something wrong. I refused to let criminals destroy my reputation to cover their fraud. I refused to accept injustice, even when fighting it nearly destroyed me. If I had taken that $50,000 settlement, Tyler would still be out there. He would still be committing fraud. He would still be ruining people's careers to cover his incompetence. Gregory would still be enabling him. Nextech would still be stealing federal money. But I said no. I fought back. And I won. That is the lesson. Not that good things happen to good people or that justice is automatic. The lesson is that corruption and injustice thrive when good people stay quiet. When witnesses are too scared to speak. When victims accept settlements because fighting seems too hard. I refused to be quiet. It cost me everything for a while. But I got it all back. And more. And Tyler and Gregory lost everything permanently. Sometimes the bad guys do win, but not this time. I smile as I look out my office window at the San Francisco Bay. The water sparkles in the afternoon Sunday. My phone buzzes with a message from Maya Proud. Of you, always. The fight was worth it. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where doing the right thing felt impossible? Where speaking up might cost you everything? What did you do? Did you stay silent? Or did you find the courage to fight back? Leave a comment below and share your story. I would love to hear how others have handled these impossible choices. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories of standing up against injustice. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story about overcoming adversity and fighting for what is right. And please share this with someone who might need to hear it, someone facing their own impossible choice about whether to speak up or stay silent. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that even when the fight seems hopeless, even when you are alone and outmatched, the truth still matters. Your voice still matters. And sometimes, against all odds, justice actually wins. Stay strong. Stay honest. And never let anyone silence you when you know something is wrong.